In order to get people to change, you need to connect with them. And dissolving systemic racism, especially in the workplace, requires showing individuals how to be open to other perspectives and create meaningful connections. Our guest is helping companies dismantle and reimagine a new system and new culture that is inclusionary of BIPOC, LGBTQ, and disabled people. Stay tuned to the Startup Life live show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Startup Life live show. I'm your host, Ande Lyons, startup founder champion. And after raising 4 businesses of my own, I now love providing DIY advice to newly minted business owners to help them sleep through the night. I call it Andelicious advice, and it's a combination of core startup business strategies and tactics delivered with high enthusiasm, inspiration, and joy, because gosh knows we need a lot of fun and joy on this trip, right? Thank you for carving out time to tune in and up your founder game while cheering on a fellow founder. For those of you watching now or via the replay, I would be so grateful for your support of this show with a like on this video wherever you're watching, and a subscribe and a click on the bell icon for you YouTube viewers. Thank you so much. Okay, so I am so excited to introduce you to our guest, Nicole McKinney. I met Nicole online. I have been a fan of her and her work in the world, I want to say 6-7 years. I mean, we've all been hanging out online, getting to know each other. And I am just so honored to be able to introduce you to her and have a delicious conversation with her. Now, she is a passionate, dedicated senior digital and marketing strategist with more than 20 years right here with the BCAD group of experience as a leader and strategist on behalf of clients across North America. In 2019, Nicole pivoted. Oh, we love a good pivot from her marcomm business and launched Waking the Unconscious, a nonprofit with a core mission to focus the lens on both the systemic and relational dynamics of anti-Black, POC, racism, and unconscious bias in the workplace. Now, Nicole's work is inspired by the legacy of her father, Dr. David McKinney Jr., a renowned academic in the US and Canada who spent his career focusing on anti-Black racism and human rights. We are going to learn more about her dad and what inspired her, Nicole, to launch this amazing platform and begin dissolving systemic racism with the right conversations in the workplace. Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thank you, Ande. Thank you for having me. Yay!
I am so glad. Seriously, folks, we have been woohoo, aha, yum, yum for years online, but
we sure have.
This is it. Like it's like
we're together, we're talking.
Yay! I know. Now, where are you hailing from?
I'm hailing from Toronto, Canada. So that's where I currently live. I was born in New York City, so I'm a dual citizen. So I'm a fellow American and a Canadian citizen. I've spent almost half my life in both places. So North America, I guess I'm hailing from. Toronto today. How's that? Toronto, Canada.
Toronto today. I'm hailing from Boston, north of Boston, because Boston got maybe an inch of snow in this big snowstorm you all heard about but we got 18 inches, 1.5 feet. But as long as the power stays with us,
we're good.
I am a happy camper. Where are you hailing from? Those of you watching, throw it into the comment threads. And remember, Nicole and I want to celebrate you and your business. So please put your business name, your one-liner, and your URL in the comment threads so we can pull it up and go, yay, Woo! Yeah, we're celebrating Nicole today. We're going to learn a lot from her, but we also want to make sure you founders are getting your moment in the spotlight. Hey, and que pasa to you, my dear friend Jocelyn.
Hey, hi,
Yay!
Jocelyn. From
Yes.
Boston, too. So another fellow Bostonian.
Yes, that's right. And he's right. Rachel O'Neill, thank you for pinging her, has a phenomenal podcast, Nicole, on how to help Karens, we put it in quotes,
Right.
understand what their white fragility is and understand that racism is around. And
Right.
so she's a brave soul out in the world doing phenomenal work. She's an HR specialist, really entrenched in the Boston community as well as the startup community. And thanks, Mia, for tuning in over there at YouTube. One of my favorite people. You have got to check out Mia's podcast, Shit We Don't Talk About. Okay,
I'm writing these down actually as I go because I'm going to check them all out. I'm going to follow all of you. So I've just got a pen and paper and I'm writing them down.
Yay. And Laura, did you get any snow? You're over on one of the islands, Nantucket, right? And everybody, we're going to do a spotlight. I want to show you what this looks like. Okay, Nicole, meet Zaze, extra virgin olive oil on Instagram. Here you go, everybody. And remember that Laura's business supports female farmers from Turkey. That's where her olive oil is harvested. It has a phenomenal mission that comes with it. And I'll just pop that up on the screen real quickly for everybody to see. Laura, I got to tell you, thank you for giving everybody on my show this understanding of how we can spotlight a business right here. And while we're live, yes, you're in Denver. Awesome. So happy, Mia.
Hi there from Denver.
I love that Nicole wrote down your podcast, Mia.
Absolutely, I did. Rachel and Mia. So
yes,
I'll be seeing you there.
Perfect. And I was just listening to one of Mia's podcasts, Nicole, about trauma and how sometimes when we are unable to work through our trauma as founders, it can really get in the way of our working and bringing our business fully to the world. So everyone, thank you again for tuning in. Nicole, you've been doing your own jam for a while now.
A long time.
Like, how is it that you didn't just start working for Madison Avenue and bringing your incredible, impeccable brand awareness and design acumen to the world in that form? Like, when did you wake up and say, I'm going to do this on my own for me?
So I have a kind of an unconventional journey. I started out in the fashion business, actually. So I really did. I worked on 7th Avenue in New York City. So
nobody's surprised. Look at this, right? I mean,
I don't know about the outfit, not so much today, but so my dream as a child was to be in fashion. And I remember I was supposed to go to law school, and I tell my father, my mother says to me, you're not meant to go to law school. You want to be in fashion, stick to your guns and go tell your father. And I had to tell my father that I'm not going to law school. I want to be in fashion, and I want to go to FIT, which is the Fashion Institute of Technology, for those that aren't familiar, which is the Harvard of fashion. Yep. And so my dad flipped, as you can imagine, and then decided that we made a deal that I would go and get a degree of his approval so that I could go to FIT. So I ended up going to SUNY Purchase and getting a degree in art history. And then I went to FIT, and then I worked on 7th Avenue for 12 years. I came back to Canada and relaunched the kids wear division for Polo Ralph Lauren. So I really did work in the industry for quite a long time before I started my own gig. After being at Polo Ralph Lauren, I just decided that I kind of lived my dream and it was ready to create a new dream. And I was doing some consulting and brand strategy. And one of the people that I was consulting with, who was a owner of a very large agency and had won some Emmy awards, had said to me that there were very few women in advertising, and there were very few women of color in marketing and advertising, and that why don't I launch a digital agency and take some of his designers? And one of my creative directors who has been with me for more than 20 years, is still with me. And so we launched BCAD Group, which stands for Brand, Culture, and Design. We've worked with all sorts of different companies, from big to small, from Honda to big furniture stores to TJX to the big banks. We've won some design awards for our work with Plan Canada, Because I Am a Girl, which is a huge campaign around children. And so I kind of pivoted my journey of fashion into my journey of advertising. And one of the things that many entrepreneurs will be able to understand is that thread of how one thing leads you to another. So my creativity and my natural innate sense of design has helped me in marketing and advertising, because I have an eye that sees things just in a different way. Things come to me naturally. It's just, everybody has that gift, and that's my gift. So it was a difficult journey from the technology standpoint, but an interesting journey from taking fashion to marketing and advertising. And that's kind of how that.
Yeah. In what way was it difficult from a technology?
I just didn't know anything about technology, and I build technology. I'm still not application savvy. It's just like the bane of my little existence. I want to be able to do everything fast and in 1 second. I'm not very patient, so it's not my favorite thing. But I understand the systems and structures. So I'm very project oriented. So if I understand a system and a structure, so I can tell you what to do, I just can't do it myself. And so it allowed me to be able to create websites. Right now, we're creating some software in the cannabis and agricultural space, seed to sale software using some blockchain technology, which is pretty innovative. We're also building a social media marketplace where people will be able to use this software to be able to sell their products and services on their mobile phone in remote places. We're looking at countries like Africa, places where people don't necessarily have access to large markets, so that they can get into the marketplace with their mobile phone to be able to sell their products in a global marketplace. So that's some of the things happening at BCAD Group right now.
Let me just throw this back up here, because, multi-talented goddess here. Okay, everybody. So going in many different directions. And I highly recommend, just for the aesthetic purpose, please follow them. Twitter, but definitely Instagram, because Nicole, you curate eye candy like nobody's business. And it just feeds, you just said that, just from having just something simple about the Pantene color for jet black, to the outfit, everything, the pulling food together or flowers together. You have such an eye. And I know that's what you bring to technology, because so often technology can be very boring. And people don't bring that aesthetic design to, where you can touch it and feel it and sense it, tied into the company's brand promise. And that's what, of course, lit my heart up on fire about you right away was, just your design sense and your impeccable eye for how things need to look. And I look at the work you're doing still with BCAD Group that is serving the world, especially in the cannabis industry. That's amazing. And hey, Lauren, who's going to be on February 12th, everybody.
Hi, Lauren.
Incredible woman. You're going to love hearing her story and how she's, doing something similar in the workplace to include, for inclusion.
Amazing.
And yay. You'll love it, Laura. I'm telling you, it's so good. And so let me just, Jocelyn, thank you. He runs litbell.com. We provide done-for-you services combining mindset, marketing, and tech coaching and consulting that helps passionate brands build sales and marketing funnels and scale growth.
Yay! Way to go, Jocelyn.
Thank you. It's so much fun, right? To cheer these founders on who are out there hustling. Oh yeah, you're going to love it on Insta, Mia. Absolutely, especially the IG stories. Friggin' awesome. Okay, so there you were. Incredible. You had this great business. You shared why you were compelled to go in this wonderful thread that brought you here. What inspired you to pivot in 2019 and launch Waking the Unconscious? And let me just bring this back up here. Waking the Unconscious. That's a pretty lofty mission and agenda for someone who has been more in the for-profit world and design world. Please share with us what compelled you, what called you.
Absolutely. So I'm mixed heritage. My mother is Jewish. My father is African American from the southern United States. And I'm part of my second family from my father. So my father was born in 1920 and had a family at 20, and then he had us at 50. So I was raised by a father who was raised in the Jim Crow era. And his experience of being a Black man, he became an academic. He was one of the second African American at the University of Chicago in the late 40s, early 50s. And so his experiences with anti-Black racism were extraordinarily profound going into the 40s, 50s, and 60s. His entire body of work as a sociologist and anthropologist was always in anti-Black racism. And so my upbringing was always about his fears and the preparation required to raise Black children in the world and what was going to happen to us and how are we going to be able to face the racism that was there in the world. So this was living in me subconsciously. It's part of my DNA of how I was raised. My father came to his last teaching position was in Canada at a university called the University of Guelph, which is where I was raised. He turned 65. He's got this massive body of research, and they turf him out because in Canada there was mandatory retirement. He says, I'm not near ready to retire. I'm taking the University of Guelph to the Supreme Court of Canada, of which he which this case is a precedent case. So it changed the infrastructure for mandatory retirement for the country, and they study it in law schools. And he had taken a lot of other court cases and done a lot of fights. So every time he got angry, he was very much an activist. He would take whoever it was or whatever it was to court and fight it. And he used his research skills. So he would always do the research work and then have a lawyer present the case for him. So I had lived in this activist environment, unbeknownst to me, as I'm wearing my pearls and putting nail polish on and dressing up in my mother's outfits, wanting to be in fashion and not necessarily thinking about this, but it was part of my DNA. And my dad died 5 years ago, and he leaves this very big legacy of work and legacy for the country as to how he was able to contribute through the action and the activist work that he did. And as you lose a parent, you start to think, what is my legacy going to be? And I started to think about, is my legacy going to be about me, just creating beautiful things because I live and die for beautiful things? Or is there something more that I can contribute using the resources and knowledge that I have? And this was right about the time that I heard companies and organizations talking about belonging and allyship as far as diversity and inclusion was involved. They were talking about putting diversity and inclusion leadership in their organizations, creating silos or departments that were diversity and inclusion. But what was missing in the conversations that I was listening to, and this was through networking events and online and podcasts, was a lack of discussion around privilege and marginalization. There was a lack of discussion around, within that discussion of allyship and belonging, of lived experience. So I thought to myself, how are you going to be able to be an ally to me if you don't understand my lived experience?
Right.
And
that is so key.
And so for me, I got mad, literally got mad. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to have a speaking event so we can have a discussion about this. So what began as a speaking event became a summit that became a not-for-profit, became a whole consulting arm. And before you know it, I had a whole organization. And that's kind of really how it started. And I felt that in that discussion around privilege and marginalization, what is missing right now is the understanding of the structures and systems of racism. So before you can, and the fact that we need to be looking at individual behaviors. So I think people are looking for change in the wrong place. Each of us has to make in their own personal individual behavioral change and understand. First of all, you've got to understand the behaviors that relate to racism. Then you have to be able to understand how to change those behaviors. And so we call it the unpacking. So the unpacking of the structures and systems that become our cultural norm today. And then we have to unlearn all of those behaviors and relearn new ones. Okay, and so it's kind of what waking the unconscious is all about. So that's kind of how it all started.
First of all, okay, now we all know why your dad was like, excuse me, get a quote real degree first. He is about the academic world. We love that. And I love that you made him happy and did that and then went on and pursued what you liked and loved. I also love that, you had that view of what he was doing. It's always in the background. You knew he was doing all this activism and going to court and putting up the really important fight. Whether you win or lose, you need to show up and continue to raise the consciousness and challenge the status quo. So this is all being indoctrinated into you as an observer, as having conversations with dad.
Right.
So now what I love is that there you were, you started to notice like, oh, great, another DEI training. Okay, we all know it's like check that off the box. Exactly. In a room. Nobody is going into a home of a person of color and seeing how they live and really connecting on that level to really understand what are you going through and why is racism so hard and what is this unconscious bias we have. You cannot know anybody's lived experience, whether it's a person of color or someone who's disabled in a wheelchair or someone who is fighting for their life with a horrible disease. You cannot know their lived experience until you share life with them, until you have that deeper connection. And then your empathy can take over, as we saw with Brene Brown when they did that wonderful skit, do you want a sandwich versus going down in and really being empathetic with someone. And so what I love the most, and I don't know how many founders can relate to this, is there you are. Well, I'm going to have a speaking moment about this because I just have to get this off my chest. Oh, you want to do a summit? Great. Let's do a summit. Let's pull that together. And that snowball event that starts to happen. And it's like, well, shoot, I got a platform now. What? And it fell in. So, give me a high five, fist bump, whatever, if you've ever had that happen with a business. There you were minding your own business and then boom, it happened. This is what makes it, the whole journey so important, but it's also shows that it was a calling, that each of those steps, right, Nicole, happened so that you could go, okay, all right. Oh yeah, this needs a voice of its own. It's no longer me being the voice. I have to put it here. Yes,
absolutely. That's exactly what it was. It did need a voice of its own. And I think a different perspective of looking at things. I don't think people understand how on a day-to-day basis, the white dominant culture, the white supremacist system inadvertently affects those who are other. All those who are other, especially those that are people of color, Black people, Indigenous people, and the emotional and spiritual injuries. You were talking about trauma earlier, and the intergenerational traumas that we all experience. So the trauma that my father experienced became, in some ways, inadvertently my own trauma. So all of these things add up to an extraordinarily huge emotional tax. And until people understand these structures and systems that those of privilege have lived under and how they affect the cultural norms within our society, they can't begin to make behavioral changes that will allow the unraveling of the work required in order to make an inclusive system, especially in organizations. So this is the work that really needs to be done, and it has to be done individually, one person at a time. We're all at different places. We're all in different spaces. And I think that we have to start to look at our own self-identity. We have to look at our own biases. We have to look at our own life experiences. We have to examine our shame triggers. We have to examine our guilt. We have to examine our own intergenerational trauma individually for all of us. I think all of us have experiences of pain that we bring to who we are as we continue to grow. And so all of this work needs to be done first so that you can begin to unpack and unlearn the current system so that we can relearn and reimagine new ones. And that's what this work is about.
And I think, everybody's like, oh, please, can I just have another round of
right?
Who wants to do all that work?
Right.
But honestly, we know change has to happen. And sometimes, until trauma happens in your life or something happens that you are forced to deal with an issue of yours, whether it's a horrible breakup or a loss or something, it's good to get ahead of that and start working on that. But again, as I said earlier, this is a huge, lofty goal that you're trying to do, because when you talk about all this work, and I think this is why we're having more conversations in the world about how important mental health is, until, and I think too, I want to say that the organizations having to come in through that as a way to reach people. Just one second, I want to talk about that point, but I just want to say hi to a few folks again.
Absolutely.
Lauren, agree. Yes, lived experience is so important.
It's vital. It's vital.
It is, and being able to connect on that. And this, you're absolutely right, Laura. This is part of Zaze's mission, and it's why it was created.
Amazing.
For that. And okay, I'm going to say, okay, everybody, I'm a phonetic learner. So Jocelyn knows I screw up his name all the time. I'm so sorry. Jocelyn. Okay.
Jocelyn. Jocelyn.
Jocelyn. I am
Jocelyn.
Jocelyn says, and our language also needs to be updated, blacklisted, right? Black ice, black sheep.
Language is everything. Data is one of the areas that we're focused on in our work at WTC. And the areas that I'm looking at where data is concerned is behaviors, actions, and language. I cannot express enough the power of language and how actions can direct one aspect of behavior, but language can dictate another. And I think that we need to really be looking at not only our behaviors, but also at the language that we use in order to convey our experience, to convey who we are, to convey the change we want to see. So it's vitally important on so many different levels and areas.
And I love that Jocelyn brought that up, because it was in my notes, Jocelyn, because when we did our tech check, we got to talk about the language aspect of it.
Yes, huge.
It really is. And we know this, of course, with the LGBTQ community as well. We're using, language that is just wrong. And I know trash talk is important for some people, it's been referred to as locker room convo. We need to raise our consciousness.
Absolutely. I think people need to be thinking about our language, but all of this comes back to understanding our identity and our biases, so that we can look at the things that are outside of what the cultural norms have been up to today. So in order for us to be looking at different ways of presenting information, we also need to look back on what the cultural norm is, so that we can find that something different that is inclusive of everybody.
Right. And Marie Meslin, she's the executive director, everybody, of the Capital Network, TCN, here in Boston. Phenomenal. She's had a series on inclusion in venture capital, in angel investors, for founders. Phenomenal. I was just telling Nicole this yesterday about the new majority.
Yes, so we love that. Instead of minoritized or underrepresented, I love that, the new majority founders.
So follow Melissa Bradley.
We aren't under anything. That is so superb. We were just talking about that yesterday, Ande and I, and we are the new majority. And by 2025, 75% of the workforce is going to be millennials, and a lot of that is going to be people of color. So we are the new majority by far. And so, Maria, way to go. I love that. Thank you.
Yay. And I couldn't remember the 1863 project. So thank you for that, Marie. Thank you so much. Everybody follow what's going on with Melissa Bradley and her remarkable work in the world. And as much as we've been using underserved, underrepresented, language is so important. So new majority is so uplifting.
So uplifting.
It's such a shift. And Jocelyn, oddly, trauma in my Latino Dominico, Jocelyn, is just part of growing up. We don't know any other way. And who seeks therapy? We are just taught to suck it up.
That is so very true.
Jocelyn, go listen to episode 19 of hold on, let me just grab it here, because Mia talks about this in episode 19 with, I want to say, Aaron Moore, is it? And it's all about that suck it up trauma stuff, and how it's too hard to move forward when you are not understanding what that trauma is and how it affected you. And also the being able to convey and have people have that same language in a place that they can all play with it to
Right.
help that connection happen. So I almost like visually see this space right here where we get the common language and we get the common empathy and understanding, and that we all sort of hold on to it and tap into it and absorb it so that we have more humanity. It's not the us versus them situation. It's how can we be more inclusive and together on this. Hey, thank you, Bobby. Good to see you.
Hi, Bobby. Thank you for coming. Nice
Bobby,
to meet you.
Yeah, Bobby, put the name of your business and the tagline and the URL in the comment section so I can pull it up. Thanks. Yes, and here's Mia talking back at you, Jocelyn. And it was a great conversation, Nicole, because this woman just wanted to work with dogs because humans were too scary, and what she learned along the way. So let's get back to your incredible work, because, you know, it's one thing when it all sort of comes together like a magic wand and it pulls things together. And there you are with this beautiful brand and beautiful purpose and beautiful mission, waking the unconscious. But you also had to put on your business goddess hat, tiara, and say, okay, how do I set this up? Because folks, it's really, you know, transitioning from for-profit into nonprofit, you know, that's a tough one sometimes, but it doesn't have to be, depending on how you're forming the entity and bringing it together. So how did you figure that part out?
So for me, it's really like starting any other business. It's a startup, and I'm running it like a startup organization. So it's no different than BCAD. It's a baby BCAD group, so to speak. So I set it up as a not-for-profit corporation because we want to raise money. I'm raising money, especially for the data archive. We're looking to build a very large data archive. We'll be partnering with some major universities. We're putting our concepts and methodology together right now, and we will be raising money. So one of the reasons I decided to go the nonprofit route was because I wanted to raise money. On the other side of it, everything fell into place organically this time round. So there were three aspects or three pillars of areas that I felt that I wanted to be able to focus on. And the three pillars for WTC are, one is storytelling. I think it's very vital for people to understand other people's lived experience. And that I have a film team that's working with us, and I was able to bring that aspect to the organization through the work that I had been doing with BCAD Group. And the idea behind that is that I believe that until you hear somebody's lived experience from their mouth, especially if it's not your lived experience or the lived experience of somebody around you, when you hear something that somebody says within an experience that they may have had, sometimes that will trigger an aha moment that will allow you to want to explore and learn more. Look within yourself. Well, did I do something that could have caused that person to feel the way that they're feeling? And these stories need to be told. There was somebody who said earlier about the trauma they experienced in the Dominican Republic and the idea that you have to suck it up, that you couldn't share that. And these experiences need to be let out. So we are doing a storytelling. We have a couple of videos on our website, and we will have many more. COVID kind of backed us up a little bit. And so we probably have 15 in the pipeline right now that are on their way to going up there, where people will be sharing their story around privilege and marginalization. And I think that piece of it is extremely important for people to be able to share their stories. Then we have our consulting work. So our consulting work is focused on the unpacking to unlearn anti-Black racism. And that work is really focused on collecting data, using the data and evidence to help these organizations understand what's really going on in their organization. So there's a stat actually from Accenture, and it talks about 68% of leaders thinking that everything's great with their employees, and that 32% of employees totally disagree. So there's a big understanding gap of what's really happening in these organizations. And so it's one thing for me to come in and speak about all of this. It's another thing to actually gain evidence and data that you can tie into the work that you're doing. So we're very focused on being able to do audits, collect data, understand what management perception is. What is employee perception? What is customer perception? What is the emotional climate of your organization? So emotionally, how people are feeling. We're in the midst of two pandemics right now. So one is the pandemic of COVID, and the other pandemic is the racial reckoning that we're all going through at the same time. For many, it's more than we have ever had to experience in a lifetime. So unpacking all of this and gaining the ability to be able to manage these things. Ande was talking about mental health. Right now, the mental health of all of us can't not be affected by all of the things that are happening to us in this world right now.
Yeah.
And the last part is the hardcore data. So collecting serious data with academics, where we will be releasing reports, we'll be creating tools that companies will and organizations and institutions will be able to use in their work around behaviors, actions, and language on an individual relational level.
Wow. I just went to school. So the important thing is the 3 pillars, everyone. Whether you're a startup, for-profit, or not-profit, you need to have that deep understanding of your core mission, your core vision, but especially when you're diving into something where you are looking to transform how people think and be in the world and connect. And I really appreciate that data part. You have a CTO that you're bringing on, outsourcing. How does that work?
So we have several people that are part of our global team right now. And what we've done is we're building collaborative relationships with various people, social workers, human resource partners, sociology workers, academic researchers in the areas of psychology and sociology. And basically, each program for each client has to be customized, because you can't go into a company. I'm not about putting a check on a box. I'm actually about cultural change. And every company and every organization has different objectives. They have different goals. Every organization's leadership team and the employees behind them are at different levels where this work is concerned. So really what part of that audit is to be able to make an assessment of where they are, where are the stop gaps, where are the changes required, what are people really feeling, where are the struggles, how can we make the kind of changes you're looking to make? And then we can kind of implement a plan. And then we bring our collaborative partners in depending on what aspect of the work is required, and then we have them work with us on a particular project to execute the needs specifically of the client.
And those numbers are so important, because that's when people can have their aha moment, especially those in the C-suite who need to be able to implement these programs and give it a charge with their leadership within the organization. When you give them the hardcore numbers that are going to make them think, what? I had no idea. Then they can get even more ownership for the project within the organization.
My father always said, kill it with evidence. So you need that evidence, especially when there is a lack of understanding. And we've got such a huge gap where race is concerned right now, and anti-Black racism in particular. So the numbers, a lot of companies are still at that point of checking off a box. They aren't prepared to put the resources in to be able to do the work to facilitate the kind of transformation we're looking at. So having those numbers and being able to take those numbers back to them and say, these are the realities of what's going on in your organization. This is what you told me your goals and our objectives are. And now here's the facts. Then it allows us to really have some substance to sit down and have some serious conversations, and to have the ability to get the resources needed to facilitate the work. This is a marathon, by the way. This is not a sprint. So this isn't about 1 or 2 sessions. This is a year. This is 2 years worth of work, 3 years worth of work. And it's a process. And so we have a process that we've put together to kind of do this work in pieces so that people can go at their pace to do the work that's required to make the changes that they want to see in their culture.
That's right. And folks, unconscious bias happens even in the type of diversity and inclusion training you're offering in the company. This can be based on the folks who are making the decision experience of how diversity is because they're white and they think they've done enough.
Right.
And then you're going to have the unconscious bias from people of color who's like, why bother?
Right.
Never works, never helps us. Why bother? So now when you bring the data in, you're able to pull together for that organization the right program for the type of people they have, because culture is already defined in that company. So you can't take what you're going to do over there for 7th Avenue, 5th Avenue, advertising company and put it into a tech company that's in Silicon Valley. You need to make those changes, and the data gives you that, just like it does with your marketing and everything else you're doing. I just love this something fierce. Let me just follow up here with Bobby. He's a local person here, and his company is the Leap Network, and it's a recruitment firm for diverse medical professionals and administrators.
Amazing.
Yay.
Bobby, nice to see you. Amazing. Keep up the good work. We need everybody we can get. So that's amazing.
Absolutely. And Jocelyn, you brought up something really important on the language thing too. MS Word has a hidden setting that autocorrects 8 biases in your writing. Wow. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Age bias, cultural bias, ethnic slurs, gender bias. Hey, that's helpful.
Racial bias, sexual orientation bias, which is why we want to do some of the deep dive studies with several major universities on language, because that issue of language is huge. There's some amazing studies of tech companies in particular who have put in actionable what appear to be actionable behaviors for change around diversity and inclusion. But if you read the language to which they describe what they're doing, it says something totally different. And so that racism that has been embedded institutionally is constantly being moved and transferred into different formats to perpetuate the structures and systems of white dominant culture that are currently in place. So I love that. And language is vital.
It certainly is. I'm just going to say hi to Weedleen. How are you? Weedleen has a company called Fusion Dolls, and she has every skin tone from yours, light, all the way to dark, beautiful amazing dolls. Every time I talk to her, she's stroking and all the different hair types.
Amazing. I wish I would have had a doll like that when I was growing up. The changes of being able to have books and toys and being able to see who you are and to see people like you is so vital and so important, and something that I didn't get to have when I was growing up. So to be able to know that children have access to things, the beautiful toys and books, especially those that look like them, are amazing. So,
hey, Jocelyn just grabbed your 3 pillars. Are you feeling good about
amazing.
that?
I love that. Amazing.
Now, Jocelyn, I'll say your name enough times out loud correctly.
Now, thank you.
Visual. That's great. Thank you. So everybody who's watching, that's it. There are her 3 pillars of her nonprofit business model. So when you say you're raising money, you're raising it from a grant position?
We're going to raise grant money. We'll go to corporations, so impact funds, VCs that are looking at impact funding. So they want to gain, rather than the ROI, they'll look at the impact of the research and the work we'll be doing, and the affiliations of the major universities that we decide to partner with. And we're talking to several right now, several in the US and several in Canada. And the idea is hopefully we can cross-pollinate with several different institutions on gathering the data. Yeah. One of the things that I think is missing in data collection is, and it's important to mention, is the idea that as Black people and Black women in particular, our lens and our voice have not been leveraged. And so part of collecting this data is to have data that is collected from the perspective of Black women, and to have our lens heard. And so hopefully my ultimate goal is, instead of going to Accenture and KPMG and Deloitte, that people will start to turn to WTC, which is the acronym for Waking the Unconscious, and start to look at the data and the tools and the white papers and the books that we put out around the work that we'll be doing. And there'll be a lot more on this in the coming year and years to come beyond that. So we'll be raising money from that and for that particular work. We're also doing work in the education system. I actually have a very interesting project that's happening that we're about to launch in the next couple of months. And that's focused on anti-Black racism in the school system. It's rampant here in Canada. And so we are actually putting together a campaign using TikTok and Twitch and Instagram, where kids will be able to share their anti-Black, anti-Indigenous racism experiences within the school system. So we want them to be able to start to share their stories and tell their stories about what's happening in the school, with the impact of hopefully getting the senior educators, so the administrations, to change the curriculums in the school system. We're looking for accountability as far as racial bias goes in the school systems with teachers, to facilitate the change of the diversity of teachers that are in the school system. So many children don't go to schools where they don't have teachers that look like them. So that's one of the other projects we're looking to work on right now, and we're getting ready to launch, is to really focus on attacking the educational system. And we're hoping to partner with another district in the United States. Is very interesting. So hopefully we can have the US and Canada, the kids telling their stories in tandem, and be able to share and watch each other. But I think we need to hear their voices about the experience they're having, because nothing has changed in, the 30 years since I left school. It's
right.
Heartbreaking, and it has to stop.
And Theodore, thank you for adding, Ted, your voice to this, because Ted lives with autism.
Thank you, Ted. Oh, it's lovely to meet you.
Right. And so, you can get pigeonholed. Yes, people just have that in your head, and they just will discount you.
Right.
I mean,
absolutely.
Ted's producing an independent film right now. I mean, he's just remarkable.
Amazing, Ted. I'm so honored to meet you and hear about you. That is wonderful. I think it's really important that for children, that all of them have the same start, the same opportunity. So that's coming up too. So as you'll see, we have got a page coming up on our website about that, and we will be launching our campaign called Stand Your Ground. Is going to be the hashtag of the campaign. So you'll be able to see the kids on TikTok sharing their experiences, which is an amazing and powerful venue for them to be able to share.
What's your handle on TikTok?
I don't even have a tech account started yet. So,
so when it is, we'll get it out to everybody.
The hashtag for the campaign is called Stand Your Ground. And so but we'll go from there. I told you, I'm not technically fast.
That's okay. I just sent it out in the comments. Everybody tuning in, go and Stand Your Ground and go follow it everywhere.
We'll be launching it soon, and I'll let everybody know, and it'll be on our website, and we'll have a big release. It'll be some media coverage around it. So stay tuned for that.
Okay. So I don't know the origin, Jocelyn, of white papers. I'm just assuming it because it's, oh, geez, my printer is all jammed over here. I'm just assuming it's because of the paper being white. But here we go. We got that language thing going on. I'd like to put it out to you, Nicole, and to the world. Well, what else could we call this, quote, white paper that's informative?
White paper report. So I mean, an easy and simple way is just to call it a report. We're really putting a report. So we're documenting our findings and putting into a report that we can share with the media and share with the business community, the not-for-profit community, the academic community. So we're really just sharing. It's just a format to share our findings as we collect our data. We analyze the data. We want to make sure that we get that data out into the world and share it. So really, instead of a white paper, we could call it a report.
Well, I just looked it up, everybody, because why not, right? And so let me just pull it up here. I didn't get it all, but a white paper is an authoritative report or guide that informs readers concisely about a complex situation.
Absolutely.
So we just can call it the A report.
The A report, the WTC report. That's what we'll call it. It's
when you brand it for your own business, of course. Exactly. But people will often say, oh, I have a white paper on that. And everybody knows what that means. So we need to rebrand the name white paper to, I've got an authoritative report on that.
Right. Absolutely. There you go. So I was right on the money with my my definition.
Absolutely were. So, hey, look who it is, Nicole.
Cody, my brother, how are you?
Cody, we want you to give Deb the biggest hug, right? From both of us.
Some amazing things with this company, Icon. Cody, make sure you put up Icon's website here.
Yes,
You're doing some
absolutely.
amazing company with this hologram technology. So we should share that as well.
Yes.
They're in the
Do a
media.
shout out.
They're some CES darlings right now.
And Cody's wonderful wife, life partner, Deb Oakland, is the reason that we met.
Absolutely. She's my sister from another mother. They're my family. So
That's right.
we've
That's
been
right.
friends for a very long time. And that's exactly how we met. So
Here we are. So here, everybody go visit Icon. It's
there's Icon.
incredible. Well, give me your one line or two, Cody, so I can put that up for Icon. Makes it a little easier. And Jocelyn had a good name for the white paper, technical paper. There we go.
Technical paper, absolutely.
Absolutely great. And then I know Laura had a question back here. How can we, as a small business, give feedback to organizations about your work?
How can, so I think one of the things you can do is get them to go to our website so that they can start to read about our philosophy. And I encourage anybody that is interested in learning more about our work, both big and small, is to just connect with us. So we have a form on our contact page. And if you fill out that form, you reach out, we'll make sure that we reach out to you and we'll talk about the different ways that we can support what you're doing in your organization and help facilitate providing cultural change. So I think that's the best way to connect to us and to get us to be able to work with you and help you and collaborate with you. Because really it's about a collaboration. We want to collaborate with you on what you're currently doing, what your objectives are, and help you kind of understand and break down what are the things that are really going on in your organization. A lot of times what you perceive to be happening and what actually is happening can be different. And so we want to bridge that gap for you and support you on facilitating cultural change.
Can you say that again?
Oh my goodness. That's
what you perceive is happening.
I think that what you perceive is happening. I think for a lot of companies, what you perceive your organization is doing and what is actually happening are two different things. And I think that one of the things that data does is show you that. So, and I think I gave you a stat earlier around, and it's from a report called Get to Equal in 2020. It was written by Accenture, and it talks about 68% of leadership thinking that things are going well, that we're doing all of the things that are required of us, that our employees are happy. But really, 32% of the employees are on the same page as leadership. So that perception of what you think is happening and what's really happening is a huge gap. And we want to help you understand that gap first so that you can create cultural change by understanding and then making the changes that are required. And that's a massive job. And that's why data and analysis and focus groups and interviews, looking at management perception, employee perception, emotional climate, looking at customer perception.
It's not a 6-week course, folks. It is ongoing and needs to be incorporated into the 12 to 24 month part of the curriculum of companies.
Absolutely.
And to get through this, and ownership of the companies is so important to implement change. Yes, individually, we want to do the work, but if it becomes part of how your day unfolds or what your goals are within the organization, if you're in a management position, having the leadership say, hey, by the way, we need to dissolve racism and this is how we're doing it because the numbers show us whatever we've been doing has not been working. And so that will make the change that's necessary. I mean, we're not looking for kumbaya here. We're looking for respect and honoring of each of our lived experiences and what is keeping us from connecting in a meaningful way and causing exclusionary thoughts and white privilege thoughts and not honoring what folks are going through that are not white-skinned.
The other thing too is I think that leadership, if there are people who are running organizations here, need to understand is they need to model the behaviors that they want to be reverberated in the rest of their organization and not perpetuate with the perceived perceptions of inclusivity. And I think that there's a very big difference. And in order for them to be able to model those behaviors, they too need to do the work.
Right. And so, women of a certain age, you know what I'm talking about. That quote, locker room conversation that's been going on. for decades that we just got used to misogynistic behavior. It's unacceptable. It needs to be called out.
Yeah.
And it needs to stop.
It does need to be called out. And I think part of our job also, and I think one of the beautiful things that has happened through George Floyd, especially for Black people and people of color, is that for most of our lives, we've been silenced. And I think Jocelyn talked about that earlier, about sucking it up. And I think that what George Floyd taught us was that we weren't going to be silent anymore. And part of that uprising was Black people sharing their truths en masse. And now all of these organizations in fear, because they've been perpetuating the racism and the systemic pain to their employees on a daily basis. And people have decided they don't give a damn. The consequences of being silenced, the consequences of being sidelined or losing your job are no longer of value, and we can leave. It's more value to me to speak my truth.
I've seen this with a lot of founders, Nicole, in that, they could lose their entire audience, their entire tribe. And they have said, I don't care. I'm not being silent anymore, and sharing their fear of being pulled over by a cop or their child going out or, whatever. Oh my gosh. Let me just throw this up because we've got to wrap up things here.
Oh my God, it flew by.
Right?
We need another one of these. We got so much left to talk about. We didn't even touch the surface yet.
I know. Well, that's because you're working on something that's so deep and so important and so transformative. But we'll go back to your family man here, Cody Oakland. Cody Oakland, this is Icon, folks. Let me just show you again. This is the URL. Go visit it. And then here is what Icon is doing to change the landscape. It's changing the visual landscape of technology without the need for goggles or glasses, B2B and B2C opportunities galore for really helping people understand what you're doing using holographic imagery. Am I saying that correctly? Hope so. Anyway, go visit. It's a great startup. Years in the making, as all startups are, everybody. Don't ever believe those overnight success stories. And I just want to thank again, Jocelyn. You've just been capturing so much great information from Nicole here. I hope you connect with her here on LinkedIn, everyone. I have all.
Yes, absolutely. There you go.
There you go. So let's just make sure that we all stay connected and we work and hold hands and help raise up the unconscious, waking the unconscious. Nicole, you've been a founder for a long time. And it's a roller coaster ride. 1 minute you're clinking the champagne, the next minute you're crying into it. There are problems that need to be solved that you didn't even know were solvable that come up, and you figure it out. What has this journey as an entrepreneur, as a founder, taught you and been meaningful for you, both personally, who you are as a woman in the world, a woman of color, and your humanity, as well as professionally, the rock star goddess you are as a business owner?
I think it's taught me to have faith in what you know to be true. I think that ultimately, when you know something in every fiber of your being, so many of us have ideas and don't live them or bring them to life. And I think that it's given me the confidence to know that when I believe in something, that I have the value, the knowledge, the passion, the skill, the expertise to believe in myself and to do what I know to be true. So for me, I look back on WTC and I say, I saw an area that wasn't being addressed. I got angry. I didn't stay silent and wait for somebody else to do it. I had the confidence within myself to say, you know what, I'm going to speak out. I can't sit here on the sidelines anymore. And before I knew it, I had this wonderful, amazing organization. So I think what it's really done is given me faith in knowing that there isn't anything that I can't do. And especially when I'm scared, I talk a lot about discomfort. I live in the place of discomfort, and I think that it's taught me to embrace the idea of fear. It's taught me to embrace discomfort and to just leap forward into whatever I know is propelling me to do so. And this was something that I knew that I had to do. It wasn't optional to me. I had to use my voice in whatever way I could to facilitate change. So I don't think I'll be able to change everything by the time I leave, but I hope to leave my mark by the time I'm no longer here.
You definitely left a mark today.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you for having me.
It's been such a phenomenal conversation. And what you mentioned there about the fear, folks, you've heard about people saying, oh, when you go to speak in public, you're a mess initially, but as you keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, you get better. It's the same thing as a founder. It is very scary initially. And I'm talking to our first time founders here. And that's why the passion for what you're doing is so important, an important ingredient, because you're so like, well, I don't care. I have to solve this problem. I have to bring this to the world. And so that helps you overcome your fear, helps you to embrace it. It helps you to walk with it so that it has a quieter voice. It will always be there, but it has a quieter voice and you do it anyway. Wow, wow, wow. Yes. Mia, so true. Have faith in what you know to be true. That's absolutely key. And Lauren, everybody who's going to be here on February 12th, yes, a collaboration with Nicole for
I would love to do that. Lauren, please connect with me. Absolutely. Let's talk about how we can work together. That would be amazing. So definitely connect with me. You can reach me at nicole@wakingtheunconscious.com. Shoot me an email and we'll definitely set up a time to meet and talk about how we can
WOL is about keep wondering out loud. And she's developed a tech company to help people have those conversations and connections.
Excellent.
So that you can understand other folks' lived experience.
Amazing.
And aerospace engineer, just saying.
Yeah,
okay.
Tell her to connect with me for sure.
You can come from so many different backgrounds, right, folks?
Exactly,
it doesn't mean you're
right? But that's what it's all about. I think that all of us have to start to work with one another in various forms. I think there's so many opportunities out there and you never know where they're coming from. So
that's right. Nicole has a fantastic
Thank you so much.
And I know, Lauren, you were there too. Great conversation. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Nicole, for joining me. I'm going to do a little close and I'll see you in the green room.
All right.
To all the viewers, I got to tell you, Nicole can you imagine? This is really a very, of course, worthy. It's something we all talk about, right? But who actually goes and does it? Sometimes that's what I mean when we're called and compelled. You cannot move forward until you say yes to a project, a business, an opportunity, a passion, or however you want to put it. So I'm so thrilled that you carved out time to hear this founder's story and learn more about her remarkable work in the world. It was so much fun to celebrate her and everything that she's doing. And also, we love celebrating you too. So please swing by if you can and tune in live so that we can showcase and spotlight the work that you're doing and bringing to the world and perhaps open a door and add some wind to your sail. And thank you, Lauren. I can't wait for our conversation on the 12th. So good. Let me just share a little more information with you here. If you have any questions for Nicole or myself, just pop them in the comment threads or shoot us emails. Everything is in the show notes. But I also want to say we have a great, phenomenal guest coming up this Friday. Oh my gosh. Let me just bring up my, I'm a little behind here today and not as prepared as I usually like to be. And I apologize for that. We are going to be talking about how to raise a great tech company without VC funding with this remarkable man. This is Ethan Anthony. I've known Ethan for so many years. He is brilliant. He's a brilliant AI guy. Okay. And he just is, we're going to talk about, what do you mean we need VC funding to have a great tech business? No, we don't. And he can show you how and why. And remember, I told you about Lauren coming. Yep, that's right. Maximize cultural intelligence and minimize turnover. We're going to learn more about her work with Keep Wondering Out Loud. And before that, on February 9th, we're going to be talking to Jeremy Quant. Now, Jeremy has launched a website that is a virtual audio platform for the visual art exhibition. So if you love going to art exhibitions and can't get out because of the pandemic, or the art exhibition is an airplane ride away, Jeremy is solving that wonderful problem and bringing that to you. And hey, here's how you find out and find out whenever I launch a new episode of the Startup Life live show. You are going to hop on over to my meetup group and join it. And that way you'll be alerted every time I post a new episode. Just scan the QR code and it'll take you right there. So grateful that you tuned in. And founders, I really believe in this journey that it is just the best personal development program out there for you. And I know there can be days that are hard. We're here for you at the Startup Life Show. We're here to show you that you're not alone and you're not in isolation. We're all holding hands with you and we understand your journey. Stay focused, keep going, and remember, please, you've got this. I'll see you next time, Friday the 5th, 1 p.m. EST. Mwah, to all the live viewers and to those of you watching the replay. Truly grateful for your support and that you tuned in. Cheers.